What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Lawrence for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. Much respect to you for showing love to Too Raw for TV. So he asked a question, right? Well, he made a statement. I really should say. He said, since KD want to talk so much trash, and since he knows so much, as far as critiquing players of the past and, you know, how it takes commitment to play 17, 18 plus years in the game, giving LeBron a compliment while taking a swipe at Jordan, saying, you know, some guys want to quit and go play baseball while others are 22 years into the game, you know what I'm saying? So let's put Kevin Durant back in the 90s. And how does Kevin Durant fare if he played in the 1990s? Well, if you look at some of the great defensive teams in the history of this league, right? Well, I take it back. If you look at some of the great defensive teams of the past 15 years, which have coincided with Kevin Durant's career, and you look at some of the great defensive teams in the history of the NBA, and some of those teams Michael Jordan played against, right? Michael Jordan fared better and was more consistent, even amongst those great defenses, than Kevin Durant has been. When you look at, for instance, those 2016 Warriors, although they did come up short winning the title, they were indeed a great team. They won a record 73 games. If you recall, in those Western Conference Finals, when they finally made adjustments to the Thunder's hero ball tactics, right, or approach to those games, yes, they did expose Russell Westbrook, but in the playoffs, when they allow defensive players to encroach on the offensive players' space, when they allow the defensive player to not have as much freedom of movement, Kevin Durant oftentimes struggles with that. We especially saw that in 2022 against the Boston Celtics, when Emile Doka was coaching that team, when they was displaying all-time greatness at the defensive end of the ball. Kevin Durant, if I remember correctly, for all but one of those games, struggled. Whereas with Michael Jordan, yes, he didn't have his greatest performances for the most part against great defensive teams, but he did have far more consistent performances against great defensive teams. He was often able to make adjustments throughout the game and still get his 27 to 30 or 32 points in any given game. And occasionally, he would still burn a great defensive team or a great defensive guard for a 40 or 50 point performance. Remember, in Ron Artest's career, almost nobody scored 40 points against him. Nobody. I mean, Ron Artest should be amongst the list I would say, a top 15 to 20 all-time great defensive players, right? I think we'll all agree with that. A Wizards Jordan scored 40 against Ron Artest, including a preseason, multiple times. To the point where Ron Artest said, well, he's convinced that a prime Michael Jordan would have dropped 50 points on him on a few occasions. Kevin Durant has stated that the reason why his career high is only 54 points is because defenses make adjustments to him, and it stymies him from dropping a 60-point night, right? Well, that wasn't the case for Michael Jordan. That wasn't the case for Kobe Bryant. That wasn't the case for, a Rick Barry. They were able to overcome that and still have 60, and in Kobe Bryant's case, an 81-point performance. So, at the end of the day, I think if he played in the 80s or 90s, especially the 90s, I think KD would still drop numbers because of the fact that he is a guy that's 6'10" or 6'11", however you want to look at it. You know what I'm saying? You can't teach height. If you have that type of height, you're going to be able to shoot over defenders, and you're going to have some big nights, right? But I think because of the spacing of the time, I think because of the pace, I think because of the fact that defensive players are able to really play defense and be more physical. And when I look at the evidence of how he reacts to physicality and you knock KD out of his rhythm, I think that he would probably average more around 25 in that era as far as his career is concerned, rather than the 27, whatever it is right now, 27, 28, whatever it is. I think he would average 25. I still think he would have seasons averaging close to 30. But what I think was he would suffer from is KD's allowed, due to the era that he's playing in right now, to basically be comfortable. He rarely goes out of that comfort zone. Kobe went out of his comfort zone. Jordan sometimes went out of his comfort zone. By that I mean Paul Pierce had to go out of his comfort zone. Meaning that sometimes, because they didn't have all these great players around them, because we look at every team that KD's played on, he's always had a great offensive player to take some of the load off of him. He's never been in a situation where he only had a Scottie Pippen to depend on. Or, sometimes nobody else really to depend on. He's always had a Russell Westbrook. He's always had a Klay Thompson or a Steph Curry. He's always had a Kyrie Irving or James Harden. Or, a Bradley Beal or Devin Booker. You know what I'm saying? Now he's going to have a Van Vliet. So he's always going to have these guys around him to take some load off of him. But yeah, I think if he played in that era, his shooting percentage would go down. I think, I don't know what off the top of my head, but I know it'd be lower. I think he'd be under 50%. I think his three-point percentage would be lower, like everybody else's was back then. I think he'd still be money at the line. But yeah, if I had to put it out there, let me see. KD, I think, hasn't shot under 50% from the floor since 2012, 2013. That's not happening back then. Also, he's not playing as long as he has back then. And if he suffered an Achilles rupture back then, more than likely that would have been the end of KD as we knew him back in those days. Then again, I don't know, Dominique Wilkins kind of came back, but, Dominique Wilkins. But no, he wouldn't be the same guy. He'd still be great. But he probably wouldn't have played no more than 14 years, 15 at the most. And I think that against the best teams, like we tend to see, he could be inconsistent. I mean, really, when you really think about it, KD really only has been like God tier. Like when I say God tier, I mean like the best player, arguably, whenever he was on a super team. Stretches when he was on the Nets and they were all healthy. When he was with the Warriors, that's about it. Oh, the 1 year when he won MVP with the Thunder, Russell Westbrook was healthy, and Russ was starting to become Russ. He can't do what Michael Jordan did or Kobe Bryant did. He can't lead a team. I don't want to say by himself because basketball is a team game, but you know what I'm saying. Being the lead dog, he can't do that. He's never shown that he could do that. So for him to say what he said to sneak this Michael Jordan just to appease that asshole, that was some bullshit. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it.